It's an honor to be here. And, it's interesting. This path has taken me all over the place. I've met so many different people over the years, so many incredible connections and people that I have a deep resonance with. And Danielle, who is joining me today, had popped up in my field, I think a few years ago. And I think I interviewed you also on my Instagram. And there's always just been this real, raw, not giving a fuck type of energy that I always appreciated you for, Danielle, and for you to just be in your power and not really care what anybody else thinks, but show up real and honest about your own path of awakening and everything that you've been through. And so today is going to be, I think, one of those conversations. I really don't know where it's going to lead. And I'm framing these more as a conversation rather than, hey, answer these 5 questions type of deal. It's more of just a real raw flow between two people. And Danielle is a world-renowned international spiritual teacher, soul astrologer. She has her own podcast, Cosmic Body, and she does so many different things. But really at the core of everything, and really why I wanted to bring her on, is to speak to awakening, and from a lens of astrology and also the lens of the masculine, because right now we are in a period where the masculine collective, the masculine consciousness is awakening out of the slumber. And it's time to step into this new realm of what does it look like to be a man in the modern age? And that's really the core of why I started this podcast. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Danielle on, and just tell us a little bit about yourself. I gave you a little brief rundown, but for those of you people that don't know you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. And I love how you said about me being real and raw. And it's just so funny because I honestly cannot be any other way. It's just the way I am. It's just, I see truth. I do this for a living. But it's not even a job. It's my vibration. It's who I am. So that definitely triggers a lot of people. But then you also have people that like you, and that we connect and resonate together and love it and appreciate it. So thank you for that. I definitely cannot speak on what it's like to be a man, but I can tell you my perspective, right, throughout the conversation, from what I've observed, from my own experiences with men, and even, balancing my own masculine and feminine. But to back up a little bit about me, so it's funny because my background is in interior design and architecture, and I had no plans. We say plans, right? Because the Danielle part of me had no plans of doing anything outside of that. However, when I was around 29, 30, I was working at one of the top architecture firms in the world, and it was very prestigious for me to even get in. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I was in grad school for 4.5 years for architecture. And so I got into this top firm, and it's called Perkins and Will. If anyone knows about it, it's one of the top architecture firms. But I was miserable, and I just knew in my heart this is not what I was here for. But I had no idea what to do after spending 4.5 years in grad school, and I was like, I just don't know what to do. I kept saying I need to help people. I need to help people. And as much as I love spaces, I'm designing my house right now, decorating my house. And as much as I love that, it felt like there wasn't enough depth for me. And again, I kept saying I need to help people, but I had no idea what that was. And so I like to share that with people because I know that there's so many people out there are not happy and they're not fulfilled, but they don't know what it is. So I was that. I had no idea. And I would come home from work crying every day. It just felt like my soul was being sucked away. And it was really miserable. And then fast forward a little bit. So I turned 30, and I had no idea what was about to happen. So I went to France with my boyfriend at the time. And on my 30th birthday in France, he dumped me, broke up with me. And I was in complete shock. I didn't know what was going on. I was very upset, very sad. And we came back to the States. I was living with him, so I moved out. And at that moment, I got this hit, but I didn't know it was from spirit because this is before my awakening. I got this hit that basically said, you need to go back to California, where I'm from. And so I went back to California, and from there, I started having an awakening. It was like right away. And again, at the time, I didn't know it was an awakening because this was 14 years ago. So there weren't a lot of Facebook groups. There wasn't a lot of Instagram. Everyone was a spiritual teacher, life coach. Like this was really like, no, this wasn't happening, right? So I had no idea what was going on. But I started having an awakening. I started seeing through the veil. I started connecting with spirit. Yet I was like, what's going on? I started seeing spirits with my own eyes, totally sober, to the point of I thought that there was something wrong. I thought I was losing my mind. But then I realized, nope, not losing my mind, because I have that awareness that this looks a little cuckoo, right? And so I'm like, okay, but if I was actually losing my mind, and this is real, I was like, if I'm losing my mind, I wouldn't have that awareness. So I'm like, something is happening here. And so anyways, throughout this journey, was many, many years of awakening and me just really understanding the truth of who I am and what I'm here for and my gifts in the world. And again, you have to understand I was 30 at the time and I'm 44 now. So this has been a long journey to get to where I am. Many years of crying, many years of purging stuff out, many years of, losing all my old friends, my old life getting taken away. And it is very hard when you're in it. But whatever happens is aligned with our journey and where we're supposed to go. So I trusted that because I knew in my heart that something, felt right, even though I was confused. It was like all of a sudden I felt a peace in my heart connect that I've never felt my whole life, because I always felt very alone. I felt very homesick, but like I didn't know what I was homesick from, right? I felt very different. And then all of a sudden something came online, and it was my soul. It was more connection to my soul. So at the root of my work, it is all connection to soul. And then I use astrology to help people understand that. But I do many, many things. And astrology is one of my tools in the toolkit. So that's just a little bit brief of my background and how I got into this work.
Yeah, the awakening journey, it's quite intense. And I think for everybody, obviously everybody has different experiences, has totally different things that happen to them along their path. And well, being in France and being dumped, I mean, I can't imagine what that is like. And I don't understand why anybody would even take you to France to dump you, but
No.
that's a whole nother subject, I'm sure. But I want to dive down multiple roads here because your story is obviously very unique. There's different intricacies and different parts, and I'm sure we can spend multiple hours talking about it. But as you mentioned, astrology is one of the many tools that you use. And where and how did astrology come into play, and how has this impacted your life, and how do you use it to impact the lives of others?
Yeah. So it's so interesting because I was working at this temp job that was pretty horrible. But I like to tell people that because, again, I was supposed to be there. So it was property management. They only come in there to yell at you. So when I was doing interior design, this is when the economy tanked. So there were zero design jobs. So our neighbor needed to hire someone. I was like, great, I need some money. It was like something to do. I was trying to figure out my life. So anyways, I was at this job and I became friends with the IT guy. We went out to dinner one night and I didn't know anything about him really. He was just a really nice guy. So we hung out for dinner, and then he asked me about astrology. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a Taurus sun. Like I didn't know anything about it, like just typical astrology. And he's like, do you want me to read your chart? And I'm like, oh, sure. I don't even know what that means. Like, that's so funny to me now. And so he pulled up my chart and he didn't even know me yet. He was able to tell me so many things about me. And something in that moment clicked. And I literally went home that night, Googled, right? Went online. This is before DuckDuckGo, which is now even like a joke anyways. But anyways, went to Google and started looking up astrology and birth charts and what that meant. And something clicked in me. And I now know that my soul has done this many times because basically I say I taught myself astrology, but it was really just a remembrance. My soul has been a mystic so many times. I have done astrology many, even before I knew about astrology. I had my first Akashic record reading. Now I go in myself, but I had a reading and she didn't even know I was an interior designer, an architect. And she said to me, you've been an architect many times. And she said, your soul, no, so not Danielle, not me. I'm not taking credit for this, but my soul helped align the stars with the pyramids in Egypt. And I worked under Isis. And so that was my first of like, whoa, something's going on. And then when I started remembering astrology, it just literally, it's a foreign language basically. And it was so easy to me, but yet I don't know any other languages. So I taught myself astrology, and I actually started to use it for myself because I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do. Maybe interior design is not for me. So like, let me learn about myself. Let me learn about my strengths and my weaknesses. And I really just dove in as this discovery of myself with no intention of ever actually doing astrology. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. There's something here. Like, this is something I'm supposed to do. So I always joke that astrology was my gateway drug. It was truly my gateway drug into this other world, into this other realm. And now it's astrology, and it's just understanding consciousness and energy and all the things that were never taught, and all the things that people are like, how do you have a job like that? How do you make money? And I'm like, how are you alive? How are you breathing? Right? You're a consciousness. I'm just explaining what's going on. So yeah, that's a beautiful story of how I got into astrology.
Yeah, and I mean, I always love tuning into your posts because you always take this spin out of it, because I really like how you take astrology but also relate it back to your own life and how what you're dealing with and what you're going on, but then also the humor that you infuse into it as well, because at the end of the day, creating that lightheartedness in any aspect, wherever you work, whatever you do, it's so important. And so yeah, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate that from you. And for me personally, astrology, I'm not super deep into it. More of like the system that I guess which combines astrology is where I work into is the gene keys, and the gene keys is incredibly powerful. But at the core of it, obviously, you have the I Ching, the 64 archetypes, and then you have astrology, because that's where our planetary alignments are. And so I've found immense value in diving into astrology in my own astrological chart. And of course, I have a lot more to go into, but really for me personally, as a man on a journey of awakening and self-discovery and wanting to inquire into the depths of my own soul, I've found it to be extremely helpful. And I know there's a lot of men out there right now that perhaps are listening to this and like, I don't even know what my sun sign is, or I don't know what any of that is. And perhaps there's people that are more advanced, but how can men use this tool as astrology for their own personal awakening? And I know that's multifaceted, I'm sure, but maybe whatever comes to your mind first.
Yeah. Well, I first want to say that astrology is the language of your soul. It's the language of the stars, which really is the language of your soul. So this truly goes beyond gender. It's about the soul frequency. But I understand that a lot of men, I've been doing this for 14 years. And so I would say 98% of my clients, people who take my courses, are women. I think they're just more open to this. Men have a very strong logical mind that makes them question this and makes them wonder. And I truly think that is what keeps people stuck. I think it's beautiful to question, but also to be open. And whereas women are more open because we feel this, right? And of course, I'm generalizing. This is not every man, this is not every woman, but this is from my experience, what I've seen for 14 years, and just literally have lived it myself. So for men, specifically, to answer your question, it's about purpose. It's about soul. So the astrology that I do, and I try to be very clear, on Instagram, I don't just do, horoscopes. That's not at all what I do. In fact, I won't do horoscopes. I think I was doing horoscopes like my first year. A magazine wanted me to write for it. And so I tried to infuse as much truth into that so that they could understand the archetypes, because it's an archetypal language. But horoscopes, it's not true astrology. So they can use it to understand their purpose. Where's their Mars in their chart? How do they use their masculine? Is their Mars in a water sign? Well, that's a very different energy than in a fire sign. And again, we all have masculine and feminine. My Mars, which is my masculine, is in a fire sign. So it is very fiery. That's why I get out there and I say these things. And, I have all this pitta energy. So the first thing is to understand, like, what is our dynamic? How are we reaching people? And are we in alignment with that? If you have a man and you have your Mars in a water sign, which is a little bit softer of an energy, Can you own that? Can you be that? Because that is so needed as well. It doesn't, not every man needs to come out with like a sword. There's gentle compassion as well. And that's just as powerful and that's just as beautiful. So for me, it's really helped me get in alignment with my truth and to own who I am and to not try to be anyone else that I'm not. Right. And then we see, there's so many facets in the chart. We see purpose, we see direction, we see our behavioral patterns, and it's layered. So again, whether man or woman, it's helpful, but especially for men, there needs to be a shift in, these are tools. These are ancient tools. We like to think it's BS. And whenever I hear that, I don't take anything personally. I don't get offended. It's just, I know that they're in a program. And to be honest, I pray for you. I hope that you break out of that program, because again, these are all ancient, beautiful, mystical tools. And if we only look at life through our logic, we will never understand the intricacies of who we are. And we're truly a soul renting this body. I chose dark hair. I mean, I could change it if I want to, but that's what my soul chose. This is just a costume. But my soul has lived many lifetimes. Your soul has lived many lifetimes. And perhaps these lifetimes are parallel lifetimes right now. We don't know. Again, I'm just saying lifetimes because that's the only wording that we know for our logic. But what is life? We don't know. Is maybe the existence is happening all at once. Maybe it's a spiral. Whatever it is, it's beautiful. And when we can surrender to that and kind of move out of our logic to the point where our logic stops us, that's when we can expand and that's when we can grow.
Yes. I marked that down because I'm like, that was powerful what you just mentioned there. And I think, just speaking from my own experience, I like to speak from I statements because I can't relate and say that every man feels this way. But for myself, the logical mind certainly definitely has played a major role in keeping me stuck in certain ways. It's also been a benefit to me in certain ways of running a business and all of that. However, expanding beyond that and going into these higher aspects of self, what happens to unfold in those spaces within the heart and within your soul is something incredible that can take you much further than what the mind can, is exactly what you're saying. So I really appreciate you mentioning that. And funny, I was like trying to look at my Mars and I'm like, I forgot where it was. It's in Pisces in the first house. So I am a Mars in the water sign.
I love that. But also it's in the first house. So you have an Aries flavor with that. Because the house placements give you like a jacket, a flavor of the energy. So it's interesting. Mars in Pisces is compassion for the world and connection of how we're all one. And so again, it's completely aligned with spiritual work, but it's about you being a leader in that field because it's in the first house.
Yeah, that very much resonates. And I've been diving into my North Node in Aries, which is a whole nother story.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have that means you have a South Node in Libra and a North Node in Aries, and we have opposite. So I'm moving into a North Node in Libra and I have a South Node in Aries.
Oh, wow. So you've mastered the Aries energy, which I can feel.
Yeah, that's why I'm just very direct because it's so easy for me. I don't know how to be anything but that, right? We can't be anything but that. So the idea with this is to hone our gifts and use that and apply it and then learn to see where we're moving and going forward.
Yeah, there's so much there. And, I think one thing that you spoke to, which is really, really important to touch on here is, at the core of the masculine archetype is this drive to know and fulfill purpose and have that one laser focused direction into a higher purpose and oftentimes a cause beyond yourself. And I, as a man personally, and this is something that I would like to open up as a perhaps vulnerable share, is that even though seem at times to have my shit together, I oftentimes struggle with, which is a gene key 28 is the shadow of purposelessness. And sometimes if I'm not giving myself over to a higher cause or a higher service, I feel like I'm not doing anything, even though I'm serving people and hosting all of these beautiful immersions and things. But that's something that I've struggled with my entire life. And then with my Aries North Node, identity has been a huge like thing for me. It's like, how do I label I can't even label myself. I don't know what I am, you know, all these things coming in. And this as also on top of being a man has been extremely difficult for me. So just wanted to share
Well,
that.
I could only imagine, and I appreciate you sharing because I that's so important. And you know, it just comes down to our journey. I mean, I felt like that up until 30, and then something just clicked in my soul. So it wasn't even anything that I necessarily did. It was a timing for my soul activation, and then it switched. But I could relate to that because I definitely felt that before. So that's where everyone has their own timing when it clicks. Like there was nothing I could have done to force the alignment for my soul. It just happened, right?
Mm,
But also part of your journey of having a Mars in Pisces is you like so Mars Pisces energy has no boundaries. It's literally everything and nothing at the same time. So you trying to create like a one point direction is like almost going against sometimes your Mars and Pisces, which is just like I'm a fish swimming here because you're literally in realms of consciousness at the same time, right? And so we have this human journey of that, oh, we have to do one thing and we have to be focused. But the Pisces energy is so etheric and it wants to be here and there. So you're not wrong for feeling that, and you're not wrong for doing everything you've done because part of your journey is the other realms and is no definition, even though you're learning definition. And that's the journey of why this is so hard for people. You
the
know?
ultimate paradox.
Yes, completely, completely.
Uh, Well, I appreciate that reflection, and that really actually helps me to understand myself even deeper. And so, exactly why I wanted to bring you on, not for myself and getting an astrology reading, but more so to relate this back to everybody else, that this is such a powerful tool for understanding oneself. And, you know, now with this really download that I've received from spirit to really put more energy, although I have other things going on, put more energy into the focus of really helping men, and this is exactly why I started this podcast. And I didn't want to just bring on men on the podcast. I want perspectives from all different people, and I also hand select everybody. And I really felt, again, like I said in the beginning, drawn to you. And so to shift focus a little bit, and you know what, before I do that, I just want to ask one more question. What is the best way for somebody listening to this to get started into astrology? I know you host group events and things like that, but is there an avenue, a way for them just to like, what's the best starting point here?
Yeah, you can go to so on my website, daniellepage.com, Paige, you can pull up your birth chart. You obviously wouldn't know how to read it too much, but then I have Astro Hacks. So I have little short, sometimes they're a half hour, an hour, or 2 hours of how to hack your birth chart. I also have a level 1, level 2, and level 3, but my level 1 is 10 weeks, and that's just a level 1. So astrology is so in depth, but absolutely, start with my first edition Astro Hack of like, what is the birth chart? How do you pull it up? How do you even look at the birth chart? So people can start there and start understanding what it is. And yeah, that would be a beautiful spot. Place to start.
Beautiful. Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to give somebody direction because,
Yeah.
like I said, it's impacted me and I want somebody else to have that sort of impact if they're interested in it. So to switch gears a little bit, we spoke to your awakening journey in the beginning and all of that. And I know, right now, as I also mentioned, that men are awakening and they're wanting to open themselves up more so than they ever have before. And there's beautiful spaces that are now being created. There's incredible organizations that are doing great work for men. And so I applaud that. And, again, part of the reason why I wanted to start this is create more open conversations around masculinity. But from a perspective as you are a 44-year-old woman, has lived lots of lifetimes in one, you've experienced different relationships. What is your relationship to, we'll start with the masculine outside of yourself, and then we can maybe go into the masculine within yourself.
Ooh, beautiful question. Okay, so what is my relationship with the masculine outside of myself? I would say that at this point, I have so many beautiful male friends in my life. In fact, like for my birthday, I had powerful, powerful, strong men. They were all my friends. And that to me is a beautiful reflection of the work that I've done to receive, to also clear out any, drama, any chaos. So and I know, because I know from spirit, my man is coming in very, very soon. They show me. I have a very strong connection with that. So my journey was to wait a little bit later in life and to really develop myself. And I think I'm in a beautiful place now. Does that mean that I have everything perfect? No. Does that mean that I'm not going to learn still? Of course, I'm going to learn and grow. But the Danielle you're talking to now versus if you would have interviewed me even 2 years ago, very, very different. So I believe the relationship to the masculine is more balanced than it's ever been. And then that correlates exactly to the relationship with myself. I do have a very strong masculine. I'm just very focused and goal oriented. And again, it wasn't like that until I turned 30. And I mean, we can call it masculine, but it's just, to me, it's just that I am so in tune with my soul. That's why I can't stay in a relationship that's not aligned. I meet amazing men all the time and people are like, oh, you're picky or this or that. And I'm saying, is it picky or is it just in alignment? Like, they're great, but they're not for me, and I think a lot of people aren't that in tune with their soul. And that's what I teach. That's what I do. And I'm also here to be an example of not settling in terms of relationship, or anything in your life, of not settling, being very clear. I'm very clear of what I want. I've been very clear and I haven't wavered from that. And I know he's coming. I see it. And it's a love that, to be honest, and I'm not saying this to try to be mean or anything, but it's a love that I know a lot of people won't have, because perhaps it's not their journey, but the work that I've had to do to get here has been intense. It has been excruciating. In fact, I'm writing a book on my experiences with love to help other people, because I feel like I've cried my entire life. I've had so much karma in relationships that I've had to learn, and I'm in a completely different space now. So I don't think I would be here if I didn't develop a better relationship with the masculine. And you can see it, it's reflected. I have so many male friends that I respect, they respect me, and they treat me like gold, and I would do the same for them. And it's just beautiful, really.
This question could have gone multiple ways. And I really appreciate your authenticity and just speaking to what your relationship currently is at. And I know, from a fact that there's been a lot of abuse and violence, and I would say towards 99.9% of women, from the masculine collective. I mean, my partner is one of them. She speaks openly about that, how, she has been completely abused and also had an attack where she almost lost her life several years ago. And so that was a catalyst at that point when I met her. And then, of course, my son being born was another catalyst. So all of these catalysts to speak to all of these things. But I think at the end of the day, I have optimism and hope for where the masculine is going, because what's happened over the years is that this sort of consciousness has been so programmed. And also what I've pinpointed, and perhaps there's multiple avenues to go down, is the root cause or the root program, or I would say more of the consciousness that's running within men, is shame. And shame then is acted out in violence and anger in all of these different ways. And so I feel that's a really core wound and root that needs to be healed in order to then not only have a relationship with another, but a relationship with yourself first and foremost. And that's also a really great, segue into the astrological makeup of understanding yourself so deeply, because when we come into partnership with somebody, I feel it's two sovereign souls growing in this direction. And as we embody more of ourself and our growth and our authenticity, what happens in that relationship? Deeper love is created within the self and then also with another. And so I don't know where I was going with that, but I just my heart felt called to share all of that.
I love that you shared that. I love that this is just a candid conversation and we're just talking with two open hearts.
And that's exactly what my intention was for these conversations, to have these sorts of, and again, people that I relate with, such as yourself. So, I feel that, right now and where we're at, and I'm excited for you, first of all, for what you're calling in, and then also sharing some of your experiences. If you could, and this is a tough one, but I know because you're not in a man's body, but if you could talk to the men right now that are listening to this, what would you say to them as a woman that is embodied in your truth, that is fully in your authenticity, that is working and living your dreams? What is, I don't know, advice, wisdom, something that you can offer a man listening to this right now from any perspective, love, any area?
Ooh, I love these questions. This is so good. Definitely never thought about this because, as you mentioned, I could only speak from being in a female body that I very deeply connect with, the feminine. Any advice that I can offer? It's interesting because I actually just got out of something, I would call it an entanglement. I'll call it an
Been there.
entanglement. Yeah. Because this soul connection with this person was so strong, it would probably not be someone that I would just choose. Like if I just based on where he's at in life and what he's doing. But the soul connection was probably one of the strongest that I've ever had. And I'm writing a whole book on soul connection. So you can imagine the intensity with this. And at the end of the day, how do I say this? You have to be willing to take chances. You have to be willing to step up. You have to be willing to be vulnerable. And actually, I could say this just because this situation was currently in my field, so I could just speak on this. This is someone that is actually very spiritually awake, I would say, gets it, what's going on in the world, and just gets the whole journey. However, and then this is not to belittle him. He's an amazing person. Okay. But this is an observation that I can see for the masculine, and I saw it with him. So I can see that with several other men as well. There was a big disconnect with his emotional body and him feeling emotions, but yet super spiritual. So kind of assuming that he kind of got it. But here's the thing, if you're not in tune with your emotions and you don't feel your emotions, you're not actually connected to your emotional body. And your emotional body is connected to your soul. So, for example, and again, this is not to share anything that's private, but I just know that he would be like, I connect to the field every day. And he's very intuitive, but you can connect to the field and also not connect to your soul and your emotions. And so that is something that I would give advice for men because I think men are more programmed to not feel. And also they don't have role models. They don't even know what that's like because they feel like that might be feminine. So my heart goes out to men in general for that situation. But my advice is to be, to really be a masculine man that takes being in tune with your soul and that takes feeling your emotions. Because if you don't feel your emotions and you don't allow yourself to process your own trauma, and we all have trauma, right? We all have patterns in our fields. You just keep repeating the same thing over and over again. And then you have sage and you call it enlightened, right? But you're actually bypassing your own heart and your own soul. Like we could be here in our upper chakras, or we could even be in our sacral and be very sexually active. But the men really need this right here in your heart. And that's the connection to the soul. So again, just, not trying to, throw this guy under the bus, but that's just what I observed. And I'm going to speak my truth. And I could also see that in other men as well. And it is hard for them because it's like, okay, I have to be macho. I have to be the man. I have to be in charge. Where they're told this, but then it's like, I have to feel my feelings and but what is that? They don't even know how to do that, So I think that I love that you're helping men, and you having a Mars in Pisces is exactly what they need in the first house, because it's like, okay, let's be a leader and let's also acknowledge this emotional world, because bypassing that is literally spiritually bypassing, and we're not integrated. That's the word I'm looking for. We're not integrated, and there is a disconnect there. So that's super, super important.
Yeah, thank you, Danielle, for sharing that. And yeah, it's definitely something I see come up a lot. I mean, I do men's circles and all of that as well, and you know, when I observe and I come into circle with other men, there's always that resistance, right? Okay, where are we going to go here? Because there is something sacred about this very powerful present warrior energy that can come out, but oftentimes that's masked under these deep emotions that aren't being felt. But there is that when a man is in his full presence and power, you can feel it. It's an essence, and it's all.
Oh my God, you can feel it. I just want to say, you can feel it that the clothes want to come off when he's in his presence. Okay, so like,
there you go, man.
I mean, it's so sexy, and like, I just melt. I melt because I'm like, oh, okay, because you can feel that power. Right.
Yeah. And it's not to, and I also want to make a distinction here that it's not to be soft. Like it's embracing that masculine and feminine balance and being that integrated in the heart space. Cause that was the tough journey for me was I'm a Venus, in Scorpio. Okay. So there's,
yes.
And I'm an authority in human design in my sacral. So there's a lot of energy in just sexuality, creativity, and all of that. And so the journey that I've had to do is like, okay, how do I take this energy and channel it up here and balance the both? Because that's been the toughest thing for me. And one other thing I want to speak to there, and I just lost my train of thought. There was one other point that you said that really resonated with me.
The man in his presence.
Yeah, just being in presence and what that actually looks like for men to be in that. And this isn't easy work. And the paradox for me is I have an Aquarius moon. So I can oftentimes when it comes to conflict, especially in relationships, like when it's my everyday, I'm definitely open and sensitive to what's going on around me. But when it comes to conflict and relationships, the Aquarius moon's like, fuck that. I'm going this way.
What? Wait, what? Feelings? What's that? Wait, hold on. What?
Yeah. So, you know, it's a whole journey, but I appreciate you mentioning that. And I know I want to respect your time too, because you have to get going in just a few minutes. So before I let you go, is there anything else that you want to speak to that's alive, that's present for you? And yeah, just welcoming you to say anything you feel.
So something that I've been experiencing lately, it's actually so beautiful. And so when I moved to Miami in March, it's now June, and I got here, and the first month I was like going out all the time. It was so fun. And that's important. We're here to have fun. And then like a month into it, in April, I was like, oh, I should probably start looking at furniture. Like I literally had nothing. I had like a mattress, right? And so I'm like, oh, I should probably I'm living in an empty house. So I'm like, okay. So I started doing that. Then I had to go back to California for a wedding. And between running my business, meeting people, kind of going through some heartbreak that I was dealing with, finding and decorating my place, which doesn't sound like a big deal until you understand that there's nothing in stock right now and the shipping is just crazy. So it's wild. And I'm an interior designer, so you can imagine it's stressful. Okay, so with all that, I've been kind of running around and doing a million things. And lately, I've been hearing the need to just pause. And so I don't even have, I have a beautiful balcony overlooking the ocean, and I don't even have lounge chairs yet. I just have blow up chairs like on Amazon because my friends were coming. And I'm like, I just want them to be able to sit somewhere. So I'm sitting on this blow up lounge chair, which actually is amazing. And like, you don't need anything else in life. You got the ocean and I'm just so happy. And I'm sitting there, and I've been spending a lot of time by myself, and it's different than before. So this is the key. Something is changing, and I see it in my life. The more I am content with myself, the more I'm dropping in the most beautiful, peaceful way, because we can spend time by ourselves when we're processing. And if you got to do that, you got to do that. Trust me, I'm the queen of processing. You got to cry. You got to be angry. You can going out. But spending time alone and completely at peace. Like, I have a couch now. I have a pop-up table here. you know, um, there's nothing in there, but it is a stillness and it is a connection with my soul on a deeper level. And I'm telling you, I feel like a different person. And I'm seeing people within the past week. I just got set up with 3 men. I didn't even do anything. And 3 people set me up. And I was like, wow. And I can see that because so the key to this, what I want to share is the more we drop in with ourselves and are truly at peace, no matter what is going on. I could sit here and be like, I want to be with that person. I want to be with, but that vibration is completely different than me sitting on my balcony or sitting wherever I want to sit. And literally just being so at peace with the present moment, whether I have furniture or not, whether I have a man in my life or not. And that vibration is shifting everything. And I feel so calm. And like, I just got all these emails, like all my furniture now it's pushed back a month. And I'm like, I've been waiting since like April. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, oh, all right, well, it'll get done. And, I have a lot of Aries, so I'm like, what the fuck, usually? But I'm like, what are you going to do? And so the takeaway with this is if you can truly be at peace no matter what's going on in your life, that's going to shift everything because everything is frequency. And I'm seeing it. Like, you can't experiment with it. You can't be like, oh, I'm going to trick the universe. Like, universe, I'm so good. I'm so good. Bring my man. Everything's great. I've tried that. That shit doesn't work, right? But it's a really of just like, no, I'm like really happy and really good. And that vibration, I could already just energetically see it. It's like emanating out. And that is what's bringing in everything that I desire. But here's the thing, you can't force it. It just has to come naturally. And I don't know, maybe I'm just ready right now, but there's a peace I feel in my heart. So I want to share that because that's going to be a huge game changer. And again, you can't force it. So don't make it happen. But when it happens, you'll know. It's like locked and loaded. I can't explain it. And it's just so peaceful. And it's like, I'm good no matter what. I'm good. I'm happy. I'm good. I love myself. And actually, one more thing I want to throw in. My friend just went to the Himalayas to go get more answers. And we had a talk, and he said, I just went to the Himalayas to get the question answered that you just told me by sitting on your balcony for 2 hours the other day. And it's like, what if the existence in life, the point of life, is to not worry about the existence? We are here. This is an experience, right? Because he's like, what's the point of life? And he was all in his head and in the mental. And I'm like, what if we just don't worry about that? Because we will never fully grapple it or grasp it, I should say, from our perspective, our consciousness here on earth, because maybe we're not supposed to. So what if we just let that go, understand that there's something so much more, right? Be open to the downloads that come through. But what if, and these words keep coming through, and I'll end with this, his spirit keeps showing me, build a beautiful life. And whether I'm with myself, whether I'm with a partner, whether with my spirit baby who I talk to, comes through, usually wearing her name on my necklace, but I took it off yesterday to work out. Whether it's by myself or with everyone, build a beautiful life. That's what we're here for. Build a beautiful life. Like, that is one of the secrets to life.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And the pathway of surrender and letting go, and the importance of that. And also, obviously, it's balance with action and everything. But those moments, and what I also teach people is the pause for presence. And it's literally just setting your alarm 3 times a day, 12, 3, and 6, rewiring the nervous system by taking 3 to 5 minutes, just breathing, pausing. And that's a way to get into the longer pauses like you're speaking to, and just being there for an hour or 2 hours, whatever it is. And that's, our nervous systems are just so jacked up, just like action, 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 busy, busy, busy. I'm speaking for myself as well. So just what you said, and really at the core of this and what everybody desires outside of the love, unconditional, true unconditional love, and feeling that true oneness and presence with themselves and others, is the desire to be free from suffering and peace, and the peace that you're speaking to. And I think it's from that state of peace that everything just naturally unfolds and comes into your life. It's an allowance. There's not much you really have to do from that state. So,
and then opportunities come to you. And then also you can take more inspired action after you have those moments of peace, because you're
yes. Yes.
I'm all about action. I am like, I'm a projector, but I sometimes act like an MG, a manifesting generator, because I'm just like, I want to do all the things. Then I get tired and I'm like, okay, move. So I love taking inspired action. It's my jam.
And that's the way, we've been definitely programmed and conditioned the wrong from work harder and get all of it, but rather than work less and just allow and take the action. So good way to end it. And I feel we could probably go for a while here. So with that said, I know you got to get somewhere, so I'll let you go, but remind people one more time where to find you: Instagram, website, anything you want to share.
Yeah, Instagram at I am Danielle Paige, Paige, and my website is daniellepaige.com.
Amazing. Perfect. It was awesome. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, of course. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.